Okay, today we're going to do some preventative maintenance on a fairly large Goodman condensing coil. And this thing's a 5-ton condensing unit, so decent size. So we're going to take it all apart, and then we'll use some new cowl cleaner, clean the coils, check the charge, and go from there. So let's get started. Okay, so here's how I usually train people. Take the top off. I just unwire it, take a picture of the wiring, unwire it, take the top off, and hose from the inside out. Get that junk out of there. Backwash it, basically. Get it hosed down. Then I spray some chemical on it and get the chemical to work. I like to have the coil nice and wet before I spray chemical all over it, but that's just me. So anyway, all right. So we're gonna add the chemical, and this is just a new cowl cleaner. I like to just spray it on. I like to go from the inside. Don't spray it on the outside. Sometimes this chemical can get pretty harsh and actually like discolor the chemical if you mix it wrong. But if you do it from the inside, you won't. If the inside's discolored, who cares? You know, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, that's just my personal preference. I mix it a little weaker, not quite as strong. I probably do about, with the new cowl cleaner, I do about a little less than 50%. Just enough to break up the dirt and kind of get it all flowing out. It'll foam up, and that's a good thing. We want it to foam and kind of push dirt out. And just good coat. Smells kind of nice. Anybody that does a lot of coil cleaning knows the smell. But we're gonna get all that junk out of there. It'll be nice and clean. So I'm gonna spray all this on and we'll come back. All right, we got a good coat on that. You can kind of see it all foaming up. Getting that chemical to kind of activate and get it push some of that dirt out. Next step is to hose it all nice and clean, trying to make everything look shiny. Here's just a little tip when you're doing it, when you're hosing off the chemicals and everything. Go up, you know, with the fin. It really helps. Just take your time. It's gonna take a little while. Do a good job. All right, well, you can tell this hasn't been cleaned very often, but we got her pretty darn clean. Down even, can't really, they're just full of grass everywhere, kind of shoved into the fins really bad, but we got it all cleaned out. For a pretty old condensing coil that hasn't really been maintained very well until the new owners picked it up. It came clean. It's got some life left in it. Now we're gonna focus on cleaning up the fan and getting all the bugs and everything out of it. Going through the electrical and checking pressures and different things, and then we'll go in, move to the indoor unit. So, all right. Okay. Some things I like to do is I like to just, with the power off, of course, go through and just check all the electrical components, make sure everything's nice and snug, tight, no discoloration on any of the ends of the wires through here. Make sure that they don't just pull right off or wiggle. I like all that to be snug, and it keeps anything from getting too loose. Connections will really they'll cause heat, and then they'll damage wires and different things. And don't get too carried away with these. I mean, just make sure they're snug. You don't need to go to town on them. And then I usually like to, so yeah, just make sure that everything's nice and snug and tight, and then put everything kind of back together. I'll have to put that back on, and I won't be able to record that because I need both hands. It's a big old fan. But I also went through and wiped everything down, checked the motor, make sure there's no wobble, it spins nice and free. And then on the compressor, and just check for oil spots. I seen someone that was in here a little bit of oil there, which is, it happens with, well, it happens with my kind of gauges, the cheap ones. They do not have the low loss fittings, so they have a tendency of spraying out a little bit of refrigerant, leaving some oil. So it's not exactly the end of the world, but I like to check it with a leak tester. Just run a little thing, see if we're actually leaking refrigerant right there. A lot of times, a lot of leaks will happen right where the welds are, which is water, and that's not oil. But just something to keep an eye on. Excessive oil is usually an indicator of a leak. Just another little thing I like to do is when you pull these off, I like to just kind of, so yeah, just crimp these down, and they don't need a crazy amount. See if I can do this. You know, all I do is kind of just grab it and just a little, you know, don't go nuts, but let's see if we can focus in on this. Just a little squeeze. And that way when I hook it back up, it's nice and snug. And that is really all I'm doing, is just making sure the ends are not loose. That was all nice and zip tied and pretty before I did this. And now it is not, so let's see if I got one. Got everything tied back up and looking good. Got just some buildup on that. Looks like the sprinklers are probably hitting it a little bit. Yep, one cleaning a condensing coil. It's not rocket surgery, but needs to be done correctly. All right, so I just hooked up the low side because there's really no reason to hook the high side up when I'm just checking, make sure it charges in place. Now it is a little cooler today, so you will see lower pressures, but we should be running right around the 40, 45, 48 PSI on the low side at the temperatures we're seeing. So this thing it's leaking, and I did notice when I took that cap off, you know, it squirted a little bit. So we've got a leaky Schrader valve. Schrader, gosh, I can't even say the word. Schrader valve. Not probably the end all. I can replace those pretty quick and easy. But yeah, we're gonna need to get, and of course it's the R22 system that is always phased out, so we'll have to get a little bit and add some to it, but not a big deal. We'll get it changed out and a new Schrader valve put in, and be done with this. Sounds good.